we're going to get started, everyone.
Recording in progress.
This is the Monday, February 23rd, 2026 Historic Preservation Commission meeting for the City of Louisville, and we're going to start with a roll call.
Commissioner Whidden?
Here.
Commissioner Wilt? Here. Commissioner Keller? Oh, sorry, that's my bad. Commissioner Beauchamp?
Here.
Commissioner Moline?
Here.
Commissioner Welker?
Here.
And Commissioner Peterson?
Here. And the first item on the agenda is going to be the approval of the agenda.
I'd move approval.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And we're going to introduce our new commissioner, Jamie Peterson, who's sitting on my right. This is her first Historic Preservation Commission meeting. And then we're going to move on to approval of the minutes from the January 2026 Historic Preservation Commission meeting.
I move to approve the minutes from last month's meeting.
And I'll second.
Everyone in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, and then the next item on the agenda is public comments on items not on the agenda. Are there any public comments on items not on the agenda? Is there anybody online? Okay. So our next item is the public hearing on 540 Country Road, the grain elevator, the alteration certificate, and the grant request. And we're going to begin with a staff presentation.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Jess Daniels, Senior Planner, and this application is for an alteration certificate and grant request for the Louisville Green Elevator Building located at 540 County Road. The applicant is requesting an alteration certificate to preserve and rehabilitate the green elevator into a commercial use, a grant for $1,475,000, and a new construction grant for a new boxcar addition for $111,000. Staff are recommending approval of the alteration certificate and grants totaling $1,571,789, broken down by tiers as per the Historic Preservation Fund resolution, and these recommendations will be discussed in further detail in the presentation. So the green elevator is a unique structure to Louisville's agricultural history, and it's also one of the last of its kind in Colorado. It's been identified as a high-value property to preserve locally over the last few decades, and as a result was placed on the National Register of Historic Places in 1986, became a local landmark in 2015, and also has a no-build area conservation easement to maintain a public view corridor since 2015. The Louisville Millsite subdivision established 3 lots and an outlet in front of the grain elevator in 2015 for the properties at 500 to 544 County Road. Lot 2 is the only property that is landmarked, and it's the location of the grain elevator. The conservation easement is located on outlet A and portions of lot 2 and 3. There was previously a PUD, a planned unit development and special review use application in 2015 for an outdoor activity area and food and beverage service, which has since expired. So the city has been involved in previous efforts to preserve and prevent the demolition of the grain elevator, including purchasing it in 2012 and entering into a public-private partnership to redevelop the building for commercial use. That earlier attempt was unsuccessful, primarily due to property boundary encroachment issues, and the grain elevator was sold at a discounted price to a new entity in 2016, the Louisville Millsite LLC, which is the current applicant. The Historic Preservation Fund has also previously provided $500,000 in funds for stabilization work. That was completed in 2016. So in total, the city has contributed, in tandem with the city's Urban Renewal Authority, $1,470,439, and additional urban renewal and grant funding and tax increment financing requests are anticipated as part of this project. A third-party gap analysis was completed for the current proposal, approximately $2 million. The applicant seeking to close the identified funding gap, utilizing both historic preservation grant funding and any urban renewal funding that is awarded for the project to be financially viable. So the current project is to redevelop the properties for an outdoor eating and drinking establishment and mobile food court, which has triggered a planned unit development and special review use application that's being considered concurrently to the HPC requests. So since Lot 2 is landmarked, the proposed renovation of the grain elevator to facilitate the commercial drinking establishment use and request for grant funds requires HPC approval. The other non-landmarked portions of the property include complementary uses, such as an outdoor gathering area, fencing, food truck pads, outdoor seating, relocating a historic accessory structure to become a tap house, a small stage, parking, drive aisles, and drainage infrastructure. So these requests are addressed by the PUD and SRU, which was considered by the Planning Commission on November 13th, 2025, and recommended to City Council for approval. So this is just an image of the site plan for the PUD and the SRU, which includes the grain elevator. And the next couple slides are some renderings that were provided by the architect on the project. The following slides show how images of the grain elevator has changed over time. So these first two are from 1916, when the grain elevator was in operation for its historical use. These are images from 2005, and since then there have been several alteration certificates and stabilization work completed to improve the building, as well as painting. So these are some of the most recent images from 2022. So the grain elevator has been included in a number of reports and surveys due to its unique architectural style and social importance. This includes the city's architectural survey, Stories in Place, which identifies the grain elevator as a county grain elevator with cribbed construction and a triangular cupola roof. It also provides extensive detail on the impact of grain elevators, like Louisville's, on the development of America after World War II. The state of Colorado completed surveys in both 1982 and 2000, and a national designation statement of significance was completed in 1986. So all of these highlight the importance and uniqueness of the grain elevator to Louisville's history, which is often overlooked by its mining history, as well as identifying its priority for local preservation. So getting to the request, the alteration certificate request is supported by construction documents for the renovation of the grain elevator that was included in your packet. And at a high level, the scope of work includes repairing and replacing the existing siding and stacked plank walls, new corrugated metal roofing, restoring the historic painted wall sign, new tenant signage, new glass enclosure with operable wall panels, new patios for outdoor dining, repairing and replacing the original windows to match historic conditions, 4 new skylights, a new glazed entry, and reconstruction of the original boardwalk and wagon ramp, as well as restoring the porte cochere. So staff analyzed the alteration certificate request against the criteria in the Louisville Municipal Code and found that it meets all applicable criteria for approval. It would not adversely destroy or alter any aspects of the grain elevator in relation to its historic designation. The project would be visually compatible in terms of the design, finish, material, scale, mass, and height of the grain elevator. Since the grain elevator can't be used for its historical purpose, its change in use to a commercial drinking establishment is a more viable and contemporary use alongside preserving and rehabilitating the grain elevator. So regarding the commercial grant requests, the Historic Preservation Fund resolution was recently updated in December 2025, and the grant incentive amounts were increased. For commercial properties, these include matching grants of up to $343,000 for the base Tier 1 funding, a new construction grant of up to $111,000, and then criteria for extraordinary circumstances and exceptional circumstances if eligible. So all this work must fall under preservation, rehabilitation, or restoration, and these grants have a 50% match requirement. So the grain elevator grant request includes 65 line items broken out by individual cost, and these details are included in the staff report and contractor bid in your packet. So the total cost of the project, based on the contractor bid, is $3.5 million. And the high-level scope of work includes site work, so grading, adding water and sanitary sewer connections, more foundation work to stabilize the grain elevator, building structural system work, restoring the wagon ramp, porte cochere, and boardwalk, exterior wall construction and envelope work, including the siding and painting restored features, roofing and waterproofing, restoring the windows and doors or replacing them, interior rehabilitation, mechanical systems and fire protection, adding an electrical system, hazardous material mitigation, and project management and soft costs. So again, the total of the project is $3,513,058. The grant request also includes a new construction grant for an addition that will look like a boxcar and include restrooms located at the eastern part of the grain elevator. So the total cost for this proposed addition is $1,071,582, and the requested new construction grant is $111,000. So staff analyzed the grant request and found several items were not eligible for historic preservation funds. So this includes fees, taxes, builder's risk insurance, some interior rehabilitation work not related to critical code deficiencies, miscellaneous structure repairs, and an owner's contingency, all of which totaled $591,480. So subtracting these ineligible items bring the eligible historic preservation expenses to a total of $2,921,578. So looking at the 50% match requirement, half of these eligible historic preservation fund expenses would be $1,460,789. Staff found that the project meets the eligibility requirements for Tier 1 funding, which includes up to $343,000 for eligible preservation, restoration, and rehabilitation work, and each category is analyzed in the staff report. Staff also found that the applicant is eligible for the new construction grant for the new addition, which will limit mass, scale, number of stories, and differentiate new work from the old. Staff also found that the project meets the eligibility requirements to be considered for funding under extraordinary circumstances. So this criteria includes repair of historic materials where possible, which in this project specifically includes windows, siding, and stacked plank walls, as well as critical code deficiency work, including new plumbing, electrical, fire, water, and sewer improvements to make the property functional. Staff also found that the project meets all of the eligibility criteria for exceptional circumstances under Tier 3. This grant category has no cap on funds pending the following criteria are met. So the first is exceptional architectural style or social history contributing to the fabric of Louisville. The grain elevator meets this criteria as it's an anchor for agricultural history in Louisville and due to its unique architectural style. In addition, it is singularly unique as it's the only grain elevator in the city. The applicant has demonstrated both that the project is not financially viable without HPF funds and that there is a gap in funding through the gap analysis that's around $2 million. There are currently HPF funds available. The fund balance is approximately $2.9 million currently. So approval of this grain elevator request would reduce the fund to $1.38 million. Reselling the property acquisition at 1016 Main Street would help replenish the fund by $1.4 million. However, staff do anticipate one upcoming commercial grant request of over $1 million in the near future. And there has also been an uptick in residential grant requests since the grant incentives were updated. The HPF fund does have revenue from the 1/8 sales tax of approximately $1 million a year. So the staff recommendation is approval of Resolution 1, Series 2026, which approves the alteration certificate. Approval of Resolution 2, Series 2026, recommending to City Council approval of grants totaling $1,571,789. And this grant would be broken down by the following categories, as recommended by staff per the Resolution 102 Series 2025, which is the HPF Fund Resolution. So the grants will be broken down by a preservation, restoration, and rehabilitation grant of up to $343,000, an extraordinary circumstances grant up to $80,000, an exceptional circumstances grant up to $1,037,789, and a new construction grant up to $111,000. Again, all totaling $1,571,789. So that concludes the staff presentation, if there are any questions, and there's also an applicant presentation as well.
Are there any questions for staff?
Yeah, I have one question. Can you tell me exactly how the estimates for the restoration were determined? I mean, was there like an engineering analysis or expert consultation or what?
I would defer that question to the applicant during
Yeah,
his
okay.
presentation.
All right, thank you.
Are there any other questions?
No.
Okay, so next we'll invite the applicant if they have a presentation.
Thank you. First, thank you so much to staff for presenting. It was very exciting, actually, to listen to you present what we've been working on. So I'm Jennifer Fox, and I am one of the partners in purchasing and coming together as an ownership group with this property. Super excited about it. We're a partnership of local residents and business owners. I actually walked a half a block over here, full block, over here from my office on Front Street. And super excited after years of watching this iconic property sit and be something that everybody recognizes. I mean, everybody knows about it. If you just say, hey, you know that property, if you look from Sweet Cow over, everybody knows about it. And so to be able to have the opportunity to get involved in this partnership has been just super exciting for those of us who grew up here and see it every day. So the building designated historical, I mean, we knew when we bought into this partnership that this building was gonna need to be a collaboration with the city and with our partnership to bring it to life. And so, you know, we were excited to be doing all the work that we're doing to engage in the community and engage in activating this area that everybody recognizes and people are excited about. So we're excited and intentional in our effort of bringing this building back to life and what it can do for our businesses, for the community. And, you know, the goal really, this building historically was a gathering place. It's where people came together. And the idea of bringing a business into this building and bringing that back to life and having it be a place where people gather again, and the benefit that it brings to all the other businesses in Louisville, along with the residents, is just really exciting to us. And so, you know, it's an opportunity. The tenant that would be moving into this building, that's the concept, right? Is they're bringing something that helps us gather, helps us come together. So we want to be keeping the integrity of the building, its museum-like character as we're developing it, and adding to all the other businesses around us in collaboration to make Louisville even better than it is. And, you know, we bought this building knowing that it needed to be preserved, and activating the property, bringing it up to code for a business to run so that the community can be engaged in it. I mean, it's going to serve hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people for years and years and years to come. So we're really excited about it. And that's just my part. There's 3 of us presenting tonight, but I just wanted to share with you our excitement about this opportunity. And thank you so much for your consideration.
And if you could just state your name and city of residence, please.
That seems fair. My name is Ross Bowdy. I live here in the city of Louisville and have since 2004. I'm also a part of the new ownership group that came alongside Eric Harntroft in partnering in getting this project to the finish line. And we are just so excited to be able to bring this opportunity in front of the HBC and the city. And I just really appreciate your thorough presentation. That was very helpful and kind of setting the stage for what we're doing tonight. Also, I want to thank Jen for coming up. You can see why it's fun to partner with her in anything, because she's amazing and has been a stalwart of the community with her company for the last, I think, 15 years or something like that in Louisville. So a lot of fun. When you stand up in front of the grain elevator as it is today, you're not just looking at an old structure. You're looking at a living piece of this town's story. Built in 1905, this elevator helped connect local farmers to the rail lines and carried their grain across the region. It stood as a symbol of industry, resilience, and the hardworking spirit that shaped this community. For decades, it was a part of the daily rhythm of this town's life. And yet, for more than 70 years, this landmark has sat largely dormant, quiet, waiting for its next chapter. Our project is about bringing that next chapter to life. This is one of the last remaining wooden grain elevators in Colorado, let alone the country. It has survived fires, economic shifts, and more than a century of change. You can still see the marks of its past in the beams and the boards, reminders that this building endured because it mattered to the people here. That history deserves more than preservation alone. It deserves to be experienced again. One of the elements that I love about this project is that so many entities get to play a part. Louisville residents who decided that this fund of funding this historic preservation mattered to them. They said yes, and that they've been funding that, and that my family is one of those residents who's been a part of that since its inception. The HBC who looks for projects like this, whether it's a beautiful home that you want to keep or some of the stuff on our main streets, making our history matter and stay around. And then our ownership group that understood that we needed to figure out a way to come up with a concept that could bring this back to the people. And what an exciting thing that we have a tenant that's ready to take it on with what this project is doing. This feels like, to me, the definition of a win, 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 win. I mean, look at all the people who are here tonight who live in this city who are excited about this. And, you know, without all of us coming together, it does not seem possible. We're just not renovating a building. We're restoring a connection to our roots and reimagining the landmark as a true gathering place, a space where neighbors can meet, families can linger, and visitors can feel what makes this town special. A place that's active throughout the day and into the evening, where coffee conversations, community events, and shared experiences all happen under one historic roof. Historically, this elevator was a hub. It brought together agriculture, rail, and local livelihoods. Our goal is to honor that role by creating a modern hub for connection, not centered on grain shipments, but on people. I still remember the first time I heard about the grain elevator being saved. I was lucky enough to serve on the local Chamber of Commerce board in the early teens, and remembered when there was talk about, is this going to get torn down? Is it going to get saved? And it started what I would call phase one of what this project is, which was saving the grain elevator. And you guys played such a big role in that. And then phase two was stabilizing that grain elevator. You also played a big role in that. And we're now standing at the beginning of phase three, and we're asking again that you would consider helping us get this to the finish line. I also want to take this chance to recognize our partner, Eric. His passion for saving this building is second to none. Long before our new ownership came into partnership with him, he saw its potential and advocated for its preservation. We're grateful to partner with him, and his dedication has helped guide this project in a way that truly respects the building's history. We're honored to be a part of this next chapter, and we can't wait to welcome you all to the experience the grain elevator together will provide. Thank you so much for your time tonight.
Quick minute here. Come on. No signal. Come on.
Yes, we've all lost our screens too.
Wonder if it's Like an F7 thing or, no? Oh. Picture.
Jump drive.
I do.
There's a lot of momentum on that presentation. Take like a 5-minute recess.
Okay.
And then we also, just so you know, we had an issue with the Zoom. So we had to log out and log back. Great, try to get you all up on your.
Recording stopped.
I got it all right here.
Okay, we're going to continue on now with the applicant presentation. And
Recording in progress.
if you could start with stating your name and your city of residence. Okay.
Green light? All good? All right. Eric Hartranft. I am an architect and planner and part-time developer, and I am an owner in the grain elevator. Address is 950 Spruce Street, just half block away, and I live about 4 blocks away. So I've been going by this site since the early 80s, and really have imagined what could happen there, and been actually seriously working on it since about 2010, and then partnered with my previous partner to purchase it from the city in 2012, 13, 14, 15. We closed on the property after we did the stabilization. That was part of our contract. And so it's been quite a ride. We had a lot of great intentions when we started. Thought it'd be easier than it was, but it's taken this long to find the right partners. And thank you, Ross, for your kind words, and Jennifer, and all my new partners. It's great. We have a great group, and the thing that is really good is that people in the ownership group are also partners in the management of the new business that's going to be the tenant. And so there's really a lot of synergy in what we're proposing, and everything is customized for this business, the grain yard. So you all know where the property is. It is an icon in Louisville. From lots of places in town, you can see it, and certainly as you're driving in from the south, it's hard to miss. Originally, the whole idea of this was to create a southern gateway to Louisville downtown, and to extend downtown further. The success of Lucky Pie and Sweet Cow, I think, showed us that this area of town can really blossom into something a lot more than it's been. And so this is where we were when we purchased it originally, and it's a pretty tired site, but it's really obvious to anybody who looks at it that there's a lot of potential there. And the potential exists in the other 2 buildings in the subdivision as well. So we're hoping that this is going to be the catalyst for redevelopment of that whole area, those 3 properties. Again, this is where we were. This is going back to the early 1900s, pictures that just showed. You can see the porte cochere, which isn't there now, the boardwalk in front of the building, and then the wagon ramp where the wagons would come up. They would weigh on the left side there of that leftmost picture. They'd weigh their wagons, they'd drive up, they'd dump the grain under the porte cochere, and there's a whole system of augers and conveyors and things that would take that grain up to the very top of the head house, which is the tallest part of the tower, and then drop it into the 6 huge grain bins. So Louisville was a little grittier when this was in operation. We had the coal mines. Everybody associates Louisville with the coal mining history, but we have a very rich agrarian history as well. And I think that a lot of people really don't understand that there were a lot of farms around the area, that people would use Louisville as the hub for their commerce. And so I think that recognizing the history is really something that it's fun for us, and we hope to be able to share with the community and others beyond. There was quite a extensive mitigation. It was almost $80,000 to clean the building when we first bought it. And it had been inhabited by animals for, decades. And so that was the first thing that we did. Hesitate to say that we've got a little more of that to do now. We've tried to keep the animals out. There's a few inhabitants, but it's a lot cleaner today. It's not going to take that much to get it cleaned up again. We did quite an extensive stabilization project in 2013, 14, and 15. We actually lifted the building off of the foundation and then reconstructed the wood from top down. The building had basically been buried. The grade had come up from when it was originally built, and so the dirt against the wood was just rotting away the base of the building. And so what we had to do was lift the building up, then replace the structure, the wooden structure down, and then bring the concrete up to the level of the new grade. And it was quite a process. We didn't drop it, so it survived all of that. This shows you a little bit of what we had to do. The construction is fascinating, the stacked planks. They're just 2x6s, and they're laid flat one on another 50 feet into the air. And you wonder how that actually works, but it's quite an amazing structure. We're using the grain bins as part of the lateral stability for the building, and we've created new footings that tie all of this together down into the ground to brace it laterally. And it's kind of amazing it hasn't fallen over. When you look at what it was, our structural engineer called it a house of cards because the main tower really didn't have a lot of structural support the way we would today and all the loads that we have to account for today. So it's definitely, at this point, it's in good shape. If we were to walk away, it would stand here for 50 or 100 years more. But obviously, as just a renovated artifact sitting in town that people don't get to enjoy, it's not what this building should be. And so it was always the goal to find an appropriate tenant to give an income stream to the building so that we can take care of it. For the last 10, 15 years, we obviously have had no income, but a lot of expenses. And so it's very hard to maintain a building indefinitely when it is simply an expense with no income. And so we're really excited that now with the proposed grain yard use, we really do have a way to keep this building around for a long time. We did get a grant to restore the sign in 2022. And so you can see that now when you drive by, and that's really made a big difference in the aesthetic of the building. You can start to see what it used to be. So the PUD, I'm not sure if this is a referral on the PUD, Rob, as part of this hearing or not. No? Okay. So the original PUD was approved back in 2015, and it was actually a subdivision and a PUD. So the entire property from the south of the warehouse building to the north of what used to be Napa Auto Parts is now the e-bike store. And so that entire property then was subdivided into separate properties and reconfigured for this planned development. Part of that was to create basically a conservation easement and protect the views to the grain elevator. And so just on a side note, there was another proposal that the city, this body and city council had entered into a contract before we bought it. That, as Rob said, didn't pan out because they couldn't assemble all of these properties and reconfigure the property lines. So part of their proposal was to put a strip building, like a strip retail building, in front of the grain elevator. And I thought that was the worst idea I'd ever seen as an architect and planner and somebody who cares about history. It just didn't make any sense. And so I'm glad the city went along with our plan, which was to keep the area open in front of the building. One of the things that sort of came to light, my previous partner, Randy Caranci, was really familiar and friends with the Warrenberg family. And if you are familiar with the dog park and the Big Red Barn, that's the Warrenberg farm to the south of town. And if you go to the south side of the creek, there's a little granary sitting over there. It got hit in the flood and it's sort of cockeyed, but it's still there. And it's this great little building. And we're going to put it right there in the northwest corner of the yard. And that's going to be a seasonal tap house. So when people are out in the yard enjoying outside, they don't really have to go in the building. They can just go over to the little Warrenberg granary. And here it is in all its glory. We're going to pick it up, move it over to the site, restore it, and we'll have to make some modifications so that we can have an awning that opens up so that they can actually serve beer from it. These granaries are great little structures. They have the siding on the inside because you fill it with grain, and so the studs are on the outside. This would hold 900 bushels of grain, and I think it's kind of a cool counterpoint to the grain elevator, which held 20,000 bushels. So these two similar uses are going to be together on that site. And we're going to have some historic interpretive signage to talk about how this Warrenberg granary was used. And it's being donated by the Warrenberg family, so that's really fun. Also, at that farm is the original scale. When in the 50s and 60s, when the grain elevator was being decommissioned and just became sort of a storage building, they took all of anything that was steel and could be salvaged, and they basically stripped it out of the building. But the Warrenbergs wanted to have the scale so that they could weigh their grain trucks and pigs and things like that. And so it exists down there. It was used in the 90s the last time, and it's in total disrepair. But again, they've donated it, so we're going to move it and reinstall it where it used to sit here. And so our hope is to be able to get people into the inner workings, the bowels of this building, and be able to, because you can actually go underneath and see the workings once we get it reinstalled. So there's some really cool stuff like that that we want to do. And again, historic grant money is going to help us to do that. You've seen our plan for the grain yard. A huge community gathering area outside, as well as the renovated building itself. We'll have activity into the night, obviously, and this proceeding has a part of it that is the landmark alteration certificate, and that is for any changes that we're making to the building. And so part of the changes include the porte cochere, which is a restoration, a reconstruction of what was there originally, but also this boxcar in the back is going to have the keg coolers in the basement, employee areas, and then restrooms and some seating areas on the main level. So we chose this form because it was something that would have been there originally. There's a rail siding that went right by the mill, and they used to load the grain cars from the backside there. And you can see that was our inspiration for the rail car, and you can see the construction drawings, how we're going to rebuild that. The other thing that we really want to do, as I mentioned, is create an interpretive historic site here. We really don't have the money. This cutaway section is meant to show you sort of the inside. If you think about it, the main level is what we're using, and a little bit on the second level where there used to be an office. And a little bit of space in the basement. But all the rest of this is really what we would consider attic space. So it's not going to be accessible to the public because there's certain safety things we would have to have 2 exit stairs and all of that kind of thing to be able to get people up in there. But at some point, we would like to try to expand the experience of the building, be able to give tours into some of those back of house areas that really show how this thing worked. And this gives you a little bit of a sense of some of the things. This is looking down into the grain bins. The best view of the grain bins is from up on the catwalks, up in the top of the building, looking down where they used to fill those bins. Because they're 40-some feet deep, and so you're up above just looking down into this great just wooden structure. It's really amazing. And then all of the hoppers and chutes and ladders in this very top, the head house, is where a lot of the equipment was. I do have a source that we might be able to get some of the authentic equipment from other grain elevators that have been decommissioned. There's a company that owns so many grain elevators across the country. They have a warehouse full of this kind of stuff, and they've offered to help us to reintroduce some of the equipment back into the property. That's the original flywheel in the basement, still exactly as it was. There's a leather belt that ran it, and so we'll be able to get people down there to see that. This is our vision for the main bar area, so you can see we really want to keep the historic fabric of the building intact on the inside as much as possible, add things that are clearly not part of the original construction per the National Park Service guidelines for historic rehabilitation. We have to differentiate the new from the old, and so we want to highlight as much as possible the original structure, the original materials, and then where we add something, it'll clearly be something that was not part of the original construction. This is kind of interesting. This right here is a lift that goes from the basement all the way to the top of the head house, and it has a foot brake on it, so people actually rode on that thing. And we found it in the basement. We're going to set it up in the space so you can see it. The cups that would go down into and pick up the grain on a big leather belt, we have some of that. And so we're going to be able to place some of these items where they used to be within the space. And it's really going to be interesting to create kind of a sort of a museum in a way. So to the nuts and bolts of our grant request, I think it was a little misleading to some people when they say the total project cost is $3.5 million. The actual total project cost is $5.4 million. That includes all of the costs, the land acquisition, the soft costs, fees, and taxes, and the things that it takes to, a year ago, people buying into the project as a developer, ground zero. It takes $5.4 million to actually bring this thing back to life. And so of that, we've asked for about $1.5 million from the Historic Preservation Fund. And staff has pretty much validated that. But I do want to talk about a couple of things that I think are really important. Well, I wouldn't have put anything in our request that I didn't believe was totally appropriate. As one of the authors of this actual ordinance, I think that it was intended to be able to take projects to the end and not leave another gap in the funding. So you can't do a project like this without some unknowns. There are a lot of unknowns when you start a project like this. So we had a $30,000 allowance for some structural work. We've identified, floorboard structures, joists, studs, basically wooden structure within the building that we can't enumerate every single item. But we know it's going to cost some money to do that. Working with the bidders, we identified an allowance, which is money that needs to be spent. Now, we don't know exactly how much it's going to cost until we get into the project. It could cost $20,000, $30,000, $60,000. We just don't know. But it's not going to cost zero. So we can't just cut it out of the project and say, oh, you don't need that money, because it's part of the project. We just don't know the exact dollars and cents because it couldn't be bid that way. So that was removed from our eligible costs. I'd like to put that back in just because it is a cost, just like any of the other costs. We have siding that might end up needing more or less repair. We have an allowance in there for that. This is the same kind of thing. Similar to that, we have an owner's contingency. So out of this whole project, things are going to come up that we haven't foreseen, that the contractor hasn't foreseen, and we're going to have to pay for it to get the project done. And that's what contingencies are for. Nobody would enter into a project like this without a sufficient contingency. If any of you have ever renovated a 120-year-old grain elevator, you'll know what I'm talking about. You're going to run into things. We've already run into things in the stabilization part that were unexpected. So I would not do this project without a contingency, period. It just won't move forward if we don't have a contingency, and we have to fund that somehow. Now, all that being said, I'm just talking about what are eligible costs and what are ineligible costs. I say that those two things I just mentioned are eligible costs, and I think they ought to be listed that way. I'm not going to quarrel with the bottom line because we asked for less than half of the eligible costs, knowing that there could be a cushion in there for things that come up during the project. So the 1.46 that was recommended by staff, totally fine with that. I would just like to have a contingency in our numbers. Good example, if the siding, and we have $46,000, let's say, in there for the siding, and it only costs us $32,000 to do that work. Well, now we can't bill for that work, but let's say that some of the framing, instead of costing $26,000, costs $58,000. Well, I need a contingency in there for that. And the only way to manage that as part of the grant is to have the contingency be an eligible cost. So I'm asking you to look at it that way, not increase the recommended grant amount, only to allow us some flexibility in there so that we don't get shortchanged at the end when we find that we have a problem that is not funded. And, instead of being able to bill for the 1.46, we might only be able to bill for 1.2 something, but still end up having to pay another $200,000 to finish the job without any way to pay for that. So it's a huge risk to not have those things in the eligible column. And I would say that I think maybe what's happened is that there's been precedents set along the way. And I'm not familiar with all of the grant requests that have come through and whether or not they have had contingencies in them or not. But I would say that any historic preservation project needs to have a contingency. And that's just the way I feel about it. And I wanted to bring that up with you guys. So that's the end of my presentation. Oh, this is a little historic plaque that I made. It doesn't exist yet, but I'd like to, I would like us to recognize all of our National Register buildings and have some wayfinding so that when, people are in town, they can actually find these great sites. And even our citizens don't know where some of these buildings are. So I think we need signs. Thanks.
Thank you.
And obviously, answer any questions you might have.
Do we have any questions for the applicant?
Yeah, sorry to belabor this, but the same question I had for staff. The source of your estimates for restoration?
So we have completed complete construction drawings for this project. It's set about this thick. And we had structural engineer, mechanical, electrical engineers, and we created the entire set. We put it out to bid to 3 pre-qualified general contractors that we pre-qualified so that we knew that any one of these 3 contractors that gave us a bid should be acceptable. We got 3 bids. We vetted the low number that we got extensively to make sure that we didn't have any holes in that bid. And the other 2 numbers were hundreds of thousands of dollars higher. I'm not saying they were right or wrong, they were just higher numbers. So in going through the low bid number, we made sure that we believed that they could do the project with the number that they gave. Now, we bid this with the understanding that it's going to be a AIA contract, lump sum contract. So that being said, the contractor has their contingencies, but at the end of the day, the $3.4 million that we sign a contract for, they're entitled to all of that. And they're only entitled to that unless there's a change order. But if they ended up with a subcontractor that had a problem or something like that, they have their contingency for that. I think staff has sort of looked at contingencies, well, contingency on contingency, but in the general contractor's contract, they get to control their contingency because, you know, their painter might come in high and their framer might come in low, and they can move stuff around in there. That's their prerogative, and that's the way those contracts work. So I feel very confident that we've got it covered. I also feel very confident we're going to have change orders. I just know that we will, and that's what contingencies are for. That's what the owner carries contingencies for, so.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
I have a question too. I'm not familiar with what happened in the earlier years when we were looking at what the city has already contributed, $1.5 million already. 500,000 of that was stabilization grant, which I assume was a match. So you've already put $1 million, the project owners prior to you?
It was not a match.
Was not a match.
No.
It was
So
a total
we,
get.
back to the history of the contract that was being negotiated when we purchased it. The city had paid $950,000 for the property.
Right.
And they were prepared in this contract that had been approved. They were prepared to give that property to the developer and to also give the developer development money. The whole deal was worth about $3 million. And that was in 2013. And so what we proposed was we will buy it for $200,000. You overpaid for it, but you stopped it from being demolished. That's great. But it really, in the condition it was in, it was not worth $1 million. Nobody, you know, as a landmarked property, which is what the city did, we actually did the landmarking, but the intent was that they were not going to let go of that property without landmarking it. So we agreed to that, and we agreed to pay $200,000, and we asked the city to then approve a $500,000 stabilization grant, and to waive some fees. There were some other fees and stuff, and that was the conditions of our contract, not a $3 million handout. It was, we'll pay you, and we want the $500,000 to get it to this first step. Now, what we weren't doing is we weren't guaranteeing that that was going to get it to be a habitable structure. All we were doing was, let's clean it up, let's keep it from falling down, and let's see what we got to work with. Because nobody, I mean, the original group that was going to purchase it, and not us and not the city. Nobody knew what it was going to take to make it habitable because you couldn't really get in and do anything in the condition that it was in. So that was our deal. And we didn't close until after the stabilization. We had an exit ramp. So if we found out that after the stabilization, it was not going to be able to be renovated, then we could have just given it back to them. We didn't do that. We kept it, and we're here today. We have put hundreds of thousands of dollars into it. I will tell you that. So.
All right, it's going to take a bit to get through these numbers here in my mind because I'm looking at total costs of the city having more dollar ownership in this project than any of the developers total.
So if you saw a house that you really wanted and you paid $1.5 million for it, and then you turned around to sell it, somebody else might not buy it for $1.5 million.
Sure.
They might only buy it for $1 million.
Sure.
Or they might buy it for $500,000. And that would just prove that maybe you overpaid for it. So you can't really look at sunk costs. The value of a property is what a willing buyer and a willing seller agree to. And I will tell you that after holding onto this property for 12 years, my partner was willing to sell his half, and I was willing to agree on a purchase price for his half. And that set the price of this property at $400,000. So that was our starting basis a year ago. We couldn't have sold it for any more than that, I guarantee you. And could have sold it probably for less. Somebody would have maybe paid less for it. So money put in, money I've put into it, money my previous partners put into it, money the city's put into it, it doesn't mean anything. I mean, it really doesn't, you know. So we have a starting basis, which is $400,000 for the value of the property. Coincidentally, the county has valued the property at $430 or $450 or something like that. So they're not disagreeing with us. I will tell you that when we had a tax reassessment in 2017, they valued it at quite a bit more, and we had to go to the State Board of
Adjustments.
Appeals, and we got that board to agree that Boulder County had to assess it at $1,000.
$1,000?
$1,000. So before the new partners came in, technically it was worth $1,000 because it takes more, a landmark property that takes more money in than it's worth isn't worth anything. That's the problem we've had for the last 10 years. Mm-hmm. You know, and when you think about how you value property, income-based appraisals are a big part of it, right? And then market appraisals are another part of it. So you find a comp for this grain elevator, right? And then you can use that. There aren't any. When we're done with this renovation, hopefully we'll get it through it, we can rent out about 5,000 square feet of this space. Now this volume, this structure has over 10,000 square feet of space, but it's not usable. You know, there's all these levels upstairs and parts of the bins are just, they're vertical space. You can't rent it out. So at $31 a foot plus $29 triple net, so anybody in real estate knows that $60 a square foot gross rent is a lot of money. Our tenant has agreed to pay that. At that, the valuation of this building is about 2.7, 2.8 million on an income basis. So if it's going to be something that's usable and that can generate enough income to pay for painting and maintenance and upkeep, It's going to take about the same amount in grants. About $2.5 million is what it's going to take to offset the, like I said, it's about a $5.4 million project all in. And so through the LRC, through this, we're asking for about 2.6 something, 2.7 million, I believe. And that's how much we're going to basically have invested in this. And so, yeah, it's a half and half partnership, which, I think is great. You can't really say the city has more than that in there because, if you've already paid the money and you couldn't get it back, it was worth $200,000. It was worth negative because the city agreed to put in another $500 for us to buy it originally. So that was the willing buyer and the willing seller. It was worth less than zero. So you can calculate it any way you want. Bottom line is, it only makes sense for a developer, a building owner, to do something if they're not going to have to feed it hundreds of thousands of dollars every year. I don't know how if any of you would have a piece of property that you would feed, that
Okay,
way.
I understand how you're coming up with your numbers. I have another question, if
Yeah.
you don't mind. The tenant that you talked about, that's not, maybe I misunderstood in the beginning. I thought you guys are also the tenant.
So my new partners are part of another group, the Grain Yard LLC, that is going to operate the business. And they have other partners in that business as well.
And they're restaurateurs?
The restaurateurs, there's no restaurant, so the tap house owners.
Tavern owners?
Tavern owners, there you go, yes. And that will be the tenant. And so I'm not a part of that group, but there is crossover in my new partnership group that are partners in both.
And they are experienced tavern event
Yes.
owners?
Yes.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions for the applicant?
Yeah, I've got a few. Thanks for the presentation, Eric. It was great, and I appreciate the group's interest in preserving the grain elevator. Can you, when you were talking about eligible expenses and non-eligible expenses, I'm not sure I understood the distinction between the 30K row and the 274K row. They seemed like almost the same, but yeah, I wanted to hear your.
It's a little nuanced in construction. An allowance is money you're going to spend. You just don't know how much it's going to be. You can guess, but you can't really count all the materials and the boards and screws, because you really don't know until you start pulling it apart how much you're going to have to put back in, right?
Yeah.
So you make an educated guess, and that's why they're big round numbers, like $30,000, $40,000. But you're going to have to spend something, and that was our best educated guess as to what it was going to take to do the things that were on that line item for the structural framing stuff.
Okay.
And then the other one is just, we don't know.
Unknowns, kind of, yeah.
Excel could charge us $80,000 instead of $50,000.
Okay.
I mean, things like that come up, and you just don't know until you get the bill.
Okay,
Yeah.
yep, great, thanks. My other question is, and maybe this is getting to some of what the other commissioners were mentioning, is, so the city is going to have a share of good portion of HPF funding is going into this site. I'm wondering if you have thought about ways for the city or the community to, get some interest or some availability or some tours or something
Absolutely.
to allow citizens in the community that maybe don't want to go to a tap house or something, but be able to learn or experience something about the elevator without,
Absolutely.
So, just a thought.
Absolutely.
Okay.
From this very start, one of the things that I was promoting was that it would be great to have a partnership with the city specifically with the museum.
Okay.
To be able to, we could train docents, we could come up with interpretive displays and signage, things like that, in conjunction with the museum, to be a part of this. And we've approached the city a few times with that idea. Where we are right now is that the city doesn't have enough staff to develop to this, to devote to this. So, sounds good, but without any kind of way to fund it on the city's side, then they're like, well, maybe someday we could be partners in this thing. But so there's that. But
Yeah.
that doesn't deter us. We can give tours. We can show people. We can make the signage. We wanted it to be more of a hand in glove, with our partners, the city. We don't have that yet, but I'm hopeful that in the future we will, because there's a lot of building. For instance, I was talking about that second set of stairs we would need. We're not funding that here because we really don't have, that program doesn't exist yet, right? For us to take tours through the upper part of the building and these areas that aren't safe without some investment of more money, right? And so we're not going to be able to do that, but we can do, on whatever, a Tuesday morning or a Thursday afternoon or something, we'll be able to give tours, and we fully intend to do that.
Okay.
And it's just a matter of, how to organize the volunteers, and maybe we'll be able to work with the city to, sort of play off of their infrastructure at some point for some of that.
Okay, great. I appreciate that. I have one more question. How would you, if somebody said, boy, this, again, big portion of HPF funding, how would we feel about guaranteeing, I don't know what the right word is, but yeah, just sort of in some way, what's the risk of this project, I guess? Maybe that's another way of saying it. What's the risk that the city ends up, or that the project uses a big chunk of historic preservation funding, and then it just doesn't quite reach the finish line, or something like that happens? If somebody posed that question to you, how do you respond?
I would say we are taking a big risk.
Sure. Yes.
Granted.
Yeah.
You've pointed that out very eloquently. We are taking a big risk.
Yeah.
And we are not funded like the city or the
Sure.
Historic Preservation Fund. So when you think about the personal risks that we're all taking, absolutely, totally aware of that.
Yeah.
And we're willing to do it.
Okay.
Me, because I'm crazy and I've been at it for so long, I don't know anything else. These guys, because they're crazy and they're joining me in this adventure. Now, that aside, we intend to get this to the finish line.
Yeah.
I mean, we're smart and we're motivated, and every dollar you guys put in is a reimbursement. So we spend the money first, and then you reimburse us for doing the thing that we said we were going to do, whether it's replace floor joists or paint the outside or whatever it is. It's a reimbursement, right, of
Yeah.
half of what we end up spending.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a huge risk.
But to your point, just to make sure I'm thinking of this right, when you're getting reimbursed, we'll be seeing results in the building itself, whatever that
Before
is.
you write the check, yes.
Yeah.
Yep,
So that's something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
absolutely.
Thanks. Appreciate
And that's
it.
the way the original grant went, and that's the way I think all your grants are.
Yeah.
It's a reimbursement, so we have to actually do the work, and then we can get paid.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Eric, quick question. And again, thank you for all the information. Just curious what kind of documentation you might have as far as rebuilding the porte cochere, and if you're obviously confident that your contractor can pull it off.
So I guarantee you that the internal structure of the porte cochere is not going to match the original because it wouldn't meet code. But we've got a lot of photographs, as you've seen, from a lot of different angles. And so we're able to measure things we know on the building with things that aren't on the building anymore. And, there's things that we can do with the photographs and with perspective and so forth to make sure that we know. We know exactly how tall the boards are. We know what the corrugations on the roof are. We can actually measure all that because we have good photographic documentation. As far as anything beyond that, what's behind the curtain is going to be, there's going to be some steel in there that I know wasn't in there, but we have to meet current codes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Eric, can I come back with one more?
Yeah.
You had a nice slide earlier that showed, I believe it was the east elevation of the structure with a new addition on the east, or
Yes.
is the new? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And there's no
the boxcar.
Yeah, the boxcar. Okay.
yeah.
Now, is there also an addition on the south side with the shed roof?
No, that's the existing, we call it the warehouse, and that's going to be the community room.
Okay.
And that exists. Yeah.
And where are the skylights going?
In that part.
In that part.
And those were approved in a previous alteration certificate. And so we went ahead and we structured the existing roof for those 4 new skylights. So
Okay.
the curbs are in, but the skylights aren't in yet.
Okay. I was
Yeah.
getting a little confused on which is going and where.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, we're moving on to then, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Public comment?
That's it.
First up, we'll have Peter Stewart, and then after that, Rick, you're on deck.
And Peter, if you could state your name and city of residence.
Yeah, good evening. Peter Stewart, Louisville, Colorado. I sent you guys a letter and explained that I worked with a team of architects and preservationists back in the late 90s on this building when we knew it was under threat of demolition. So, and the community at the time was 100% for saving, preserving the building. They have been a long time. They always have been. The sentiment at the time was, that's a great idea. We all love it, but it's really complicated. It's hard, and it's going to cost too much money. So thank goodness we have the local Historic Preservation Fund to fund a project like this. I also worked professionally. I'm an architect. Also did I work on historic structures. And I did a historic structure assessment for the grain mill in Erie, which is part of the Wise Homestead Museum complex. And we worked for years. We partnered with History Colorado on that. We had I did a historic structure assessment on it. Excuse me. We sought funding. It was a lot of hard work to try to get it done, but unfortunately, it didn't happen. The building's gone now, and it was a great loss to Erie and a great loss to agricultural history. So, again, I just want to applaud you guys for considering this. And in terms of the partnership between the city and the development team, I think that's historic preservation work is really hard. It's complicated. Things change through the process. So you have the opportunity to not just like grant this and say goodbye and come back to the opening, but to be involved with the process all the way through. I was on the Historic Preservation Commission in the first phase of the project, and they were great, Eric was great to work with. And we had a subcommittee that met like on periodic basis. I can't remember, I think it was maybe once a month. They kept us updated on everything. We talked about change orders and things, line items. We might want to change budgets to get the project done. So I would encourage you to do that kind of hands-on process with this project. So anyway, appreciate your support of this project. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Rick Crone, and then after that, we'll go online to Mike.
And if you can state your name and city of residence.
I'm Rick Crone. I'm the immediate past president of the Downtown Business Association, and I've been a Louisville resident since 1987, which means that we've been talking about the grain elevator for the entire time that I've been in town. Let's see, the DBA's discussed this project at some length, and we haven't taken a formal vote, but it's pretty clear that we're in favor of it. Therefore, I'm going to make that representation that the DBA is in favor of it. I've talked personally to Eric about this project. I have a pretty good feel for the different components and the fact that this is a very expensive project, no question about it. I think the city knew that when they bought the building. I think that has been abundantly clear over the years. Let's see. We believe it's important to the downtown businesses to both preserve and to enhance this site, and that we agree with Eric that he needs to include the flexibility to be able to take on those costs that are unknown and those costs that'll come up that nobody expected. And to have that flexibility, I think, is very important in this grant. I think what you have here is an opportunity to turn an embarrassment into a historic asset, and very much urge your support. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mike, you should be able to unmute now.
Yes, thank you. Mike Kransdorf, not a resident, but a neighboring commercial property owner. I am in favor of this proposal, as I think everyone there is, but I'll say it anyway. It's a lot of money, but after all the investment and effort that's gone into the mill site, it would be just unfortunate, tragic maybe, to see it go to waste if other funding can't be secured, and that does not seem likely. As Eric said, sunk costs are sunk costs. Your job is to decide whether the current money is worthwhile, not what's gone in. And clearly a rehabilitated building that supports a new business will be a benefit to downtown Louisville, and I think that's a big part of your mission as well. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Bob Muckle, and then after that, Travis Ramos.
I'm Bob Muckle. I live in Louisville, have for a long time. This project is near and dear to my heart. It was a very difficult political and financial lift to prevent it from being knocked down back in the early teens. So it was a lot. It was a lot of money then. It's a lot of money now, but we still have the grain elevator. And we've done the stabilization. So we've saved the building. We've done the stabilization. Many thanks to Eric and others. But old buildings, to really be preserved in the long term and into the future, need a use that's relevant to current times. So-called adaptive reuse is what you want to do with these older buildings. But even there, it's hard to figure out who that person's going to be until a group of local investors, who are all our neighbors, decided that this is the thing they wanted to take on. So it's very exciting. I mean, I'm with the presentation made about how we want to be a community gathering place and provide opportunities for multiple different users. So it's an exciting option, and it's probably a thing that where local people who really care are the only people who are going to come forward and offer to do a project like this. So I think it's a wonderful opportunity. It's a lot of money. I get that, but the building is unique and iconic and historic, and is the kind of project that when we pass the Historic Preservation Fund, this is the kind of thing we wanted to do, save really significant buildings in the community. So I sort of feel like if this building's not important enough to really lean in the last step to get the project or to get the property used and activated and exciting, I don't know what other building is as important as this. And one last thought, I mean, at some point we'll probably ask voters to extend the tax. Well, I mean, we've extended it once, right? With like a 2/3 majority of people voting for a tax. It's kind of a remarkable thing. But having done a big, successful, exciting project is a really good thing to tell people when you're campaigning for an extension of the tax. So anyway, I urge you to support the project, and thank you for your service.
Thank you very much.
Next, Travis Ramos, and then after that, Andy Johnson.
Hey guys, Travis Ramos. I'm a Louisville resident. You might know me from the Louisville Caboose and our efforts to build historic East Gateway at Pine and 42. And as you guys may know, history and saving pieces of our local history is kind of my jam. What is this? Good to see you, man. And as Jen mentioned over here, the grain elevator was historically a gathering place, and they want to keep that character, which I love. So as you all may remember, last time I was here, I had a bunch of mailboxes. It was a little ridiculous, like the biggest visual aid ever. I do like my visual aid, so this time I have something a lot smaller. And I'll tell a quick story. So about 2 years ago, I was walking in a field about 150 yards to the east of the grain elevator, and I happened to come upon the last known entrance to the Acme mine. At the entrance to the mine, I found this. It looks like a tiny little horseshoe. I was really confused, but I finally figured out what it was after a lot of research. And what it is a hand-forged heel caulk or heel iron, which coal miners wore right there on the heel of their boot. And the reason I bring this, so they needed these for traction, for walking on the rocky surfaces in the mines, that sort of thing. I bring it because Ross over here mentioned, making our history matter, making it understood as part of what they're doing with the grain elevator. And I think it's very easy to see all the plans and the budgets and all those things, but when you bring it down to the experience of one person, of maybe a coal miner, a long time ago, 100 years ago, who came up out of the mines at the end of the day, maybe walked over to visit his buddy at the grain elevator, and they met up with some other people after work, had beers, who knows what, but it was a gathering place. A place where coal miners and blacksmiths and whoever else at the time may have come. I love just kind of thinking about that, these individual experiences. And I love that they're carrying that forward. It's no longer miners and farmers and blacksmiths and shopkeepers, but they still hope to keep it a gathering place for people of Louisville, just like it was 100 years ago. And, the stories that they share may not be what happened in the mine that day, or did they see the train go by, or whatever it was. It'll be different. But the heart of what the grain elevator once was, a hub for Louisville, will once again carry on. So I wholeheartedly support this endeavor. I absolutely love it. I couldn't be more excited about it. And would love to put whatever weight I have and urge you all to put whatever weight you have behind it, funding it, and making it happen. It's going to make our town absolutely fantastic, as perhaps the Southern Gateway, as Eric mentions. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Andy, and then after that, Melanie Muckle.
Good evening. My name's Andy Johnson. I'm a longtime resident here in Louisville. As an architect, I've probably burned more midnight oil than I'd probably like to admit on historic preservation projects here in the city, doing adaptive reuse and just outright preservation, particularly of some of the homes and businesses around here. All, of course, towards a greater good and support of this uniquely special and really one-of-a-kind historic preservation program that I don't feel like nearly gets the recognition that it needs to nationally. I'm here to speak in enthusiastic support of the landmark designation, actually not the landmark designation, the grant for the grain elevator. As an architect, I've learned one truth. The fastest way to destroy a building is to leave it empty. Buildings that are empty or abandoned decay at twice the speed. They don't nearly have the care. They don't have the attention that they would if a business was running in it or something significant was happening with the building. The grant is a lot of money. It's a significant investment. We've already made a significant investment. Quite honestly, what happened over 10 years ago is a bit water under the bridge. However, it did build the story to where we are now. I feel like this investment finally matches the emotional weight that we have towards this building, one that I think a lot of us have loved, have been curious about what will happen. I've got a lot of other things, but I think what's most important, if you looked through the packet of 450 plus pages, a lot of it drawings, a lot of it maybe not as tangible to those who haven't looked at drawings like this for their entire career. This packet and the work that's gone into this building is the most detailed, the most thoughtful, the most holistic way that we've ever looked at preservation or reuse in a project. When Eric mentioned that they had full CD drawings, he's not kidding. What the contractors bid was a good set of drawings. It was detailed. It had everything that they needed. And that contingency, that might be something that you want to contemplate, is critical. I just want to remind the commission that when we did 809 Main, a contingency was actually a part of that budget. So just as part of your consideration, please keep that in mind. Highly recommend keeping that in the scope. I'm going to be walking out of the room, not because I'm done with the evening. I just have other things to do. So thank you.
All right, Melanie, and then after that, Eric Reed.
Good evening, Melanie Julian Muckle. I live in Louisville. I grew up down the road between Louisville and Boulder. This project has been my dream since at least 1997 when we moved here, and I met with the family that owned the elevator on multiple occasions, and we dreamed, and you now have the tremendous opportunity to get that dream to reality. I thank you all for serving on this commission. I was with Eric drafting the ordinance that you're working on, and with Peter on the first commission. I know how hard you all work. I would just like to say that I currently work for Historic Boulder. Historic Boulder submitted a letter of support for this project, and everyone at Historic Boulder fully supports this project and has every confidence in the ownership group and Eric and their expertise, experience, and vision to get to the finish line. I'm thrilled that the Warrenburgs still have the scales, and Eric's continual insistence that we rebuild the Porte Cochere is still alive, and the families that have lived here since Louisville became a town are all honored by this project. I also want to point out that the authenticity that is going into the specifics that Eric described, using the small granary from the Warrenburgs, the ideas for restoring pieces of equipment and the pieces of demonstrating the pieces of equipment that are still in there. Those details and the authenticity mean so much to visitors. I truly believe this can be a regional draw when the project is up and running. So I thank you all, and please support this project.
Thank you.
Next is Eric, and then after that, Stephanie Schlater.
Eric Reed. I live at 1001 Rex Street, just a block and a half away from where this project is. I'm the owner of Acme Fine Goods on 915 Walnut Street. I'm the new president of the Chamber of Commerce in Louisville here. I sit on the Downtown Business Association Board of Directors. I am on the music committee for the street fair. I am the MC for the street fair. I list those things not because it makes me more important, but it's because I really love this city. And when I see projects that are brought up and have the momentum that this one does right now, I'm behind it. It is a pleasure to speak about a building that I've walked by for the last 11 years that I've lived here in town. I go to the gym right next door in that same parking lot. And I watched my neighbor right across the street paint the mural to bring that thing back to life. I will say a couple things and then I'm going to kind of do a little romantic walk with you guys. One is that as the president of the Chamber of Commerce and a representative for it, we support businesses going into Louisville and bringing in income to this town. Some of the questions about the cost, think about what will happen when we start generating tax revenue from the sales. It will go back into the city. It will also go back into all the other businesses that exist here in Old Town, and not only just in Old Town, but the rest of the city. As a DBA member, obviously I support the downtown businesses and I want to see them continue to grow, and by drawing people from other places, we have a small population here with great restaurants and stores, and with more here, it brings more opportunity for more people to come in and spread their wealth around in our neighborhood. Now for the romance. There were photos in that presentation that made me feel nice and warm and fuzzy, and one of them was the Acme coal mining company on the left and the grain yard on the right. I named my shop Acme Fine Goods in kind of a nod to the old time of this town. The 3 stacks in the logo of my business are the 3 smokestacks. One was steam from that building. I was inspired by walking my kids to elementary school every day, where it's over on Hutchinson, and thinking about the fact that there are businesses here that are absolutely in love with the history of this town and not trying to turn it into, what was it, Disneyfication I heard at one point in some meeting. We want to see this town be as beautiful as it always been without the holes. So if we can find a way, and it's by we, I mean you, to support this project and to fund it all the way to the finish line, I believe the partnership group and the builders will do their job. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Stephanie, and then Katie Dickinson after that.
Good evening. My name is Stephanie Schlageter, and I am a downtown property owner and business owner here in Louisville. I'm here to express my support for this project and wanted to comment on a few things that I heard tonight, just to reinforce a few things. First of all, Eric was the architect on the renovation of my building when I bought it. I own the old Bug Dust Saloon. How cool is that? From almost 80 years ago on Main Street. We worked really hard to preserve some of the important features of my building, and I can tell you, if you want somebody who is going to do a really great job with historic preservation, it's Eric and his team. We preserved the Art Deco type facade on the front of my building to keep the downtown atmosphere, and it actually, I will also comment on the importance of a contingency, because that ran me hundreds of thousands of dollars over budget for a very important cause. And I did get help from the LRC, thankfully. That was hugely important. But having that contingency and having Eric were both really critical for the success of my personal endeavor, which was completed a little over 2 years ago. And I'm really excited to be part of this thriving downtown that I do feel like has really turned a really important corner in the last few years, or maybe that's just because that's what I've seen since I've been down here. I too am on the board of directors at the Chamber with Eric. I'm also with this Eric. I'm also on the Downtown Business Association board, and I'm almost catching up to Eric and his support of the city. But I too love this town, and I feel like in the last few years we're starting to see some really, really meaningful revitalization and drawing new businesses in town. One of our charters at the DBA is to try to attract a really healthy mix of new businesses that people want to come downtown and hang out at. We hear it from residents all the time. I think this project is just a really perfect addition to what people are looking for as a community gathering place downtown. So I just wanted to put in my testimonial for Eric based on my own wonderful personal experience with him. And I don't know if everybody in this room knows also how many projects of historic significance Eric has had his hand in down here. You really should have presented your resume, because if you don't know, like many of the buildings that we pass by every day, Eric has helped beautify and restore and just maintain the downtown history that we look at every day. So we could not have a better person at the helm. So overall, I just hope that you're able to support this. You know, I think it represents exactly the type of investment that the Historic Commission funds are designed to support: the preservation and adaptive reuse of a longstanding historic structure, and its redevelopment really will not only prevent further deterioration, but will ensure that it remains a meaningful part of our character downtown. So, thank you.
Okay. Katie, and that's the last one that I have.
All right, thanks everybody. I'm Katie Dickinson. I live at 721 Grant Avenue here in Louisville. I'm a second generation Coloradan, grew up in Boulder and moved back to the area in 2010, was really excited to come back and come to Louisville because it just was such a charming town. It was a place that we could afford to live with young kids, and just really excited. And right at that time was when the grain elevator, there was this conversation about what was going to happen to it. And we started daydreaming about what could go there, right? What could that become? So we've had years to kind of look at that and think about what might go there. And recently with the ownership group, the business group, the potential tenant, the stars really feel like they're aligning to make these dreams become a reality. When we talk about what we want this space to be, a term that we've really hit on is a public house. So for those of you who have visited, England and those areas, you might know that a public house was the term was first used in the 17th century to differentiate private clubs where only some people could go, to a public house that was supposed to be open and welcoming to everyone. And they had an obligation to welcome the stranger. And that's our vision for this space as well. So this question about, would we allow tours and things like that, that is absolutely our vision. And I think, now more than ever, having community spaces that are welcoming, that do welcome the stranger, that bring people together, that's really what we need and what we're excited about. So, again, with the business group, we are convinced that this pencils, and we will, be able to make money and use it, as folks have said, to keep the building upkeep and all of that. But the money part is not why we're doing this. It's the programming that we're excited for. And me personally, as a mom, when I had young kids, could come to a place that had playable landscaping, right? Things that my kids could run around and jump on. We've talked about, so I'm a professor, we've talked about having a community speaker series called I Drink and I Know Things, where people can come and just share their wisdom. We have a lot of people that know things in the community. That community room, we talked about having an art gallery, art installations, yoga, people can come and do their book clubs there, and definitely tours. So I really see this as an opportunity to pay it forward. The funds that we as voters in Louisville have approved, using that to create a space where people can come and really have it be theirs. And so we're really excited to see this move forward.
Thank you. Okay, great. So I think now we're going to open it up to conversation among the commissioners. Thank you to everybody who came and provided comment. I really appreciate the thoughtfulness and attention to detail and the transparency from everyone. And I'm really curious to hear from my fellow commissioners in terms of their thoughts.
Sure, I'll start. I think I think I can probably speak for everyone up here that it's certainly an exciting project. I can only imagine what that can become. Seeing firsthand Relish succeed as a community gathering space and having another similar type gathering space downtown, across the street from Lucky Pie and Sweet Cow, and I think it's got my full support as far as the project. Obviously, the difficulty is the ask of monies. I've gotten past what the city has already contributed as far as the purchase and resale of the project, as well as the shoring up. Sounds like that was certainly important at the time. I wonder do we need to consider those monies towards the extraordinary allowance that we're allowed to provide? I know it's unlimited, the extraordinary funding, but that's just one thing I've thought about, is if we should be considering that towards the overall ask, or not necessarily. That's.
You mean the money that has already been contributed?
Yeah, specifically, not necessarily the sale and but I guess the 500,000 that was
For shoring
allotted
up,
for shoring.
as a deduction from what could be asked.
Yeah. Or does that just fall into the extraordinary number, which is unlimited as far as we're allowed to approve?
That would be my inclination to interpret it that way. I mean, I think we heard some pretty convincing commentary on how those sort of sunk costs in the structure were necessary to save it at the time. So I don't personally understand how we could mathematically account for that at this particular juncture, especially because the extraordinary circumstances are limited.
Yeah.
I would agree that I feel like I would be challenged to consider some of the earlier funding that we've made, and then kind of try and factor that into what we're looking at today. I think it's easier to look at what's before us and just go from that on, and then base our decision on whether or not we feel like this meets those extraordinary circumstances now. So,
Right.
yeah.
Can I ask a question about the unencumbered funds versus the money that we currently have sitting in the property on Main Street? Has there been any movement on that? Or?
Yeah, well, we had it under contract for a while and that fell through, so that delayed getting it on the market. I believe we're going to actually list it by the end of this week and then have an open house potentially this weekend as well. So hopefully that'll sell soon and we'll recover the majority of those funds.
And so currently we have 2.9 million, is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
And hoping to recoup
An additional,
potentially 1.4.
Hopefully up to 1.4, near 1.4.
so then we'd be at 4.3.
Call it recouping $1 million.
3.
Call it recouping $1 million, because you're going to pay commissions, you're going to have expenses, you're not going to get exactly what you asked for.
Okay.
So it's a big chunk of our remaining money. We know we're going to have at least one other big commercial one coming at us this year. I know of at least several residential projects coming at us this year. And I do not minimize at all the effort that this group is putting out, and the expenses they've already put into it are phenomenal. And the project sounds phenomenal. But as stewards of the taxpayers and the people who are supplying the money, I'm still having troubles wrapping my brain around half of the existing fund, going to one project that's already had $1.5 million given to it towards it. It's really just kind of I wish we had more money so we didn't have these worries, but the reality is it's a huge percentage. The dollars and cents in today's dollars and cents to do a project, a historical project, which I'm familiar with from doing it myself, gets so out of hand so quickly that we don't even know, as Eric said very wisely, where is this thing going to end up? And then who do they go to next if we get to, once again, something falls apart with the partnership as it did last time because of, this didn't come out the way we expected it. And then the taxpayers are coming back to us saying, well, what the, so that's a definite issue in my mind. I love the idea of this being a public house, not just a bar, because I don't think we need another bar. We have enough empty spaces now from bars, and we have enough brand-new bars in that same exact neighborhood. Mini golf and the Mexican restaurant and Henry's and so on and so on. There's tons of places to gather and get a beer. So while they're not here, there's a lot of other citizens who have paid into this funding who don't really feel they have a need for another place to go get a beer.
What I will say is, at least for me, like reading in particular the email support that we received as an addendum for the agenda, there does seem to be pretty consistent positive feeling among the community about the project.
I agree. I was surprised that there was no negatives.
Yeah, I mean.
And I love to drink, so.
Can I just one thing, because as you summarized all the funding, I just wanted to remind you that, we will continue to get revenue throughout the year. Probably we're expecting another $1 million in revenue. So when you're doing all that math, don't forget about the incoming revenue throughout the year.
Okay.
Sure.
And then there's been a bunch of conversation about contingencies.
Yeah.
How much discretion do we have over the course of a living, breathing project that's as large as this one?
Well, yeah, so like Mr. Johnson spoke to 809 Main, and so there was a contingency within that project. That was the contractor's contingency, and we do typically support contractors' contingencies when we have that. So the numbers that you have the contractor's contingencies on their bid built into it already. So what we're talking about with the 30,000 and the 274,000, that's on top of, as I understand it, the contractor's bid and the contingencies. Now, this is a very unique project with probably more unknowns than a typical project. And I know, like Mr. Hontroft has mentioned, some things, we have all these line items. Some things may be below, some things may be above. So I think if you wanted to have a contingency, it could be reasonable based on the complexity of the project, although it's not typical to go outside of the contractor's contingency, as long as we're not reimbursing more than 50% for an eligible expense. So, I think if you wanted to look at this as a unique type of project that was different than most projects and wanted to provide that flexibility, I think it would fit within our criteria as long as we're not reimbursing more than 50% for an identified eligible item within the list.
So I understand this correctly. You can shuffle the money as long as no category, no line item goes above 50%.
We typically don't shuffle the money, but I think that would be the
that's
purpose
what
of
we're
the
asking for
contingency
this one,
in this case. So if one item went above, then then there could be some flexibility in the funding as long as there's no more than 50%.
But the total funding amount doesn't grow.
That's correct.
Another thing that I was thinking about, this request is coming far beyond the 36 months from when the property was landmarked and the 5-year time frame for construction to be done from when it was landmarked. So does that just mean that we would have to have a separate exceptions vote on making exceptions for that to happen?
You know, that's an interesting point. I think from the technicality of it, you know, I think you could still support the full amount, but you might have to find that it all falls under extraordinary circumstances because of that. I don't think we had contemplated those eligibility timeframes with this, but there's nothing that would prohibit you from granting the whole amount. And if you wanted to call it all the extraordinary circumstances, you could qualify it under that. I believe that qualifies regardless of time frame of when it was landmarked.
So you could use the new set?
So I think you made a good point. Maybe you technically can't use the new set of landmark grant criteria, so the whole funding could come under the extraordinary circumstances.
From the old set?
If you were okay with the total amount, and you just needed to figure out what was the right category to put it in.
That's your job to figure out making sure we're doing it legally.
I guess I'm probably leaning towards that I would support this, but to me, I guess another aspect of this is, and again, I'm a new person on this board, so I appreciate if you all kind of fact check me on this, but I guess this looks like to me it might have the ability to have more public visitation to it than maybe some of the preservation work that goes on to private residences and other things. And then the fact that it is in the downtown area and can be sort of a win-win is another aspect. And maybe I'm hearkening back to my time on Planning Commission, but I guess to me that is another thing that is exciting about it, that it is going to be activating a space in a way that maybe some other projects aren't able to do that. And so it's become sort of living history. It meets that adaptive reuse side of things. So just another consideration, at least for me, when I'm thinking about this.
My inclination is to agree with that. This seems to be like a uniquely sort of charismatic and engaging structure. And what they're proposing to do with it allows a lot of community use.
Yeah, I too would agree. I am in support. I don't think we'll see another project before us that is as unique and cool as this one. So yeah, I'm fully in support. I do want to take another good look at the numbers and make sure we're all in support. I also want to make sure the new commissioners, we have 3 of them, are fully understanding, and if they have any questions they need to ask of us, certainly do so.
Can we show the slide that breaks down the ask?
I mean, and I'll just add, I really appreciate the concern for making sure that, you know, we don't, that if we're putting a lot of eggs in a particular nest or a particular basket here, that we do want to make sure that we still have funding available for other projects that are coming along. Boy, do I ever appreciate that sentiment as well. So
Am I naive in thinking there may be other alternative, additional grant funding sources other than HPF money? Is there state money? I mean, there's Boulder, the Boulder group that is supporting it. There's the county of Boulder County. There's federal.
So, I mean, I believe that there's probably state grant opportunities that this, I think there are. You just can't apply for them yourself. You've done it twice already with History Colorado for the competitive grants. Interesting.
I am naive. I don't know. What?
I would add that I'm in favor because I think that it would be a great opportunity. I like the aspect that the public can utilize this space. it's not going to be a grain elevator anymore. That's really, it can't serve its purpose any longer. And I kind of feel like there needs to be more purpose in it. And this is something, like they said, the social house, a gathering place where more people can enjoy the history and everything else, but not leave it as an abandoned grain elevator on the side of a road.
Yeah, I'll be brief. I would just say that initially I was very skeptical of this application just because of the enormous amount of money involved. However, after listening to the presentation and the discussion, I think you calmed my skepticism and swayed me towards the support. And I love repurposing an old commercial property for use by the community, so I have supported it.
I guess last but not least here, man, what a first proposal for me to hear as a commissioner. No, I've been here for almost 6 years. Louisville has really been a great home to my partner and I. We lost our home in the Marshall Fire in 2021. So to be able to come back here and also to serve on this and to kind of preserve the things that have made me really feel at home here is really important to me. So I'm also in support of this. And I do love a new place for it to be a public house and for, me to bring my friends not only from Louisville, but also in the neighboring areas. I think it's a really cool aspect of this project as well.
So I have a couple of questions related to the conversation about contingencies. So if we were to approve some amount of money towards contingencies, how would that work process-wise?
Yeah, so I think what the applicant's asking for is there's a whole list of eligible items that is above the actual grant amount. And so the contingency could be included in the grant agreement, and it would be clear that the contingency we'd make sure in the grant agreement that it was clear that the contingency could be used for any of the eligible items within the exhibit to the agreement.
And then in terms of, I know there was mention of regular touch bases for a project of this size potentially being an option and being successful in the past. How has that worked?
I'm not familiar with what was being spoken to back then. I think it was a much more complicated issue of if, could it even be saved? And so I don't know the complexities on that. I think we could ask if Mr. Harntroff would be willing to come give you periodic updates during the during the renovation, or we could open it up to them to see if they have ideas of how to involve the HPC. Typically, we wouldn't be once in a formal way once the project's underway.
It puts a lot of trust on our side too, in that this is truly going to be a public house with it looks so cool on paper, and again, I'm speaking not for my own benefit because I love a good place to go to, but for all the people who have put money here and put their trust in us to watch over this money and spend it wisely. I don't think we can have any kind of stipulations on what the actual use ends up being within the structure. Our job, I think, is just to decide if we want to save the structure, and we're willing to do it with this group and put our trust into that it will be as presented. And the big concern would just be if this group does not succeed in it or is not able to make it succeed, if it's not pulling in enough money to succeed, doing it the way that's being presented, can they then turn it into anything within our zoning laws? And sure they can. Just plain devil's advocate. And by the way, I'm in support of the project. You can't tell by my tone, but I just have to bring these things up and discuss.
Well, and I think that because everyone who's kind of involved is someone who is local or who is invested in, in Louisville, I think that says a lot too, because I think that that gives them so much more investment in it, at least in my opinion. So I think that's something to consider as well, that this is not just some outside group from Denver or some national whatever. This is people who live in our community.
I'll say that this plan has been set up, and the documents that we've read this whole week have been set up 1,000 times better than the one that fell through in the past. So there is a lot of momentum, I'd say, on this one compared to the past.
So, I mean, it sounds like we're pretty consistent across the commission in being in support. Are there any questions about the amounts that staff is recommending approval of?
No, I think for me, it goes back to putting the trust in our staff and their expertise in working through what can be an exception, what can be used from current day standards and standards prior to this year's increases. And if this is, obviously this is the number that they come up with, I'm fine with it. I'm not going to try and second guess that.
And then what is the sense with regard to contingency funding? Are there opinions about that?
As far as I'm concerned, as long as it's still bottom line is bottom line of what the amount is, they're going to come up with things that they didn't need as much as they thought they were going to need for, and other things that they're going to need more than they thought. And if they can, I don't think we need to get into micromanaging every little aspect of making this thing come through.
Yeah, I appreciated the staff perspective on how to work through those contingency questions. That I'd be in support of that way of handling it.
So then I have one more question just over the sort of the lifespan of the project, because it's a big one. What happens if it goes way over budget?
As far as the city's concerned, they'd have to come back and ask for more money if they felt like there were significantly more items. I would say that we've spent a lot of time, and they've spent a lot of time completing construction documents and doing an incredible amount of due diligence and getting a final contractor bid on final construction documents. So I think the risk has been minimized because of the stage that it's in the project. But if there was something that came up that was like another $1 million and they didn't have that to actually make the project work, there might be more conversations.
Okay. Would you like to make the motion?
Okay. So are we suggesting that we agree with the original request that includes the contingency funding, or are we approving the staff recommendation?
Staff recommendation is the way I see it, is like, and I don't believe that the applicants were looking for more money in the contingency, just the freedom to be able to do just as Rob described.
Agreed.
What's that?
Flexibility.
The flexibility to move it, shift it around line items.
I might need help with the wording.
Yeah, so I think if you wanted to make a motion, you could make a motion to approve the resolution with the condition that the contingency line items, you can name them, be added into the eligible cost list. Does that make sense? That probably doesn't help. Here, let us.
It's clear as mud.
You were probably hoping for something much more eloquent than
Clear
that.
as mud.
Yeah, ChatGPT, I like that. So you can make a motion to approve the resolution with the condition that the the owner's contingency of $274,286, and the miscellaneous structural repair and unknown conditions contingency of $30,000 be allowed to be spent on eligible expenses, and that be included in the final exhibit for the grant agreement.
So but that would be, those numbers would be above the.
No, so the full, it would be $1,571,789. That would be the grant cap. Doesn't change that number.
Okay. And that is resolution
2.
2. Do we have to do resolution 1 first? Okay, and that's the alteration certificate. So let's start with resolution 1, okay? Because then we can get that out of the way. So I'll make a motion to approve resolution 1 for the grain elevator, which is the alteration certificate.
I second.
Commissioner Peterson? Sorry.
No, totally fine.
Commissioner Walker?
Yes.
Commissioner Moline?
Yes.
Commissioner Beauchamp?
Yes.
Commissioner Keller?
Yes.
Commissioner Wilt?
Yes.
Commissioner Whitten?
Yes. And then we'll make a motion to approve resolution 2 with the staff recommended amount of $1,571,789 and allowing for the use of a portion of that amount for the contingencies that are outlined by the applicant. Is that fair enough?
I think that works.
Okay.
I'll second.
Commissioner Keller?
Yes.
Commissioner Beauchamp?
Yes.
Commissioner Moline?
Yes.
Commissioner Wilt?
Yes.
Commissioner Walker?
Yep.
Commissioner Peterson?
Yes.
And Commissioner Whitten?
Yes.
You're on your way.
Congratulations.
Yeah. Oh, they're always that complicated.
They're not, they're not.
I agree, but it's better That's a green elevator again. What else can it be? Designs were
We're not done.
That's right. Our work here is not done.
No. I meant to ask when they anticipated breaking ground.
There's going to be a lot of people that.
I have a lot of questions.
Within the next 5 years.
At the very end, they're going to go to the same place. And I don't say anything.
Right.
You know, if you think about it, it works out well. Yeah, and you can bring some more. Additional revenue to the city.
I wonder when Lyle was anticipating putting
And there was a lot of people out there. that
application in and how much that one's gonna be.
People that,
Yeah.
they have a
Is that the one
great
they're referring to?
backing.
I think that's the other big one coming.
Which one?
Wildwood.
Is that about the current administration?
I
mean, they make the same argument.
It's true, that's true.
You want to get updates from staff?
Yeah, he's just shutting the door. Okay, you're up. Next item on the agenda is updates from staff.
I don't have too many updates. Staff will bring back a discussion for the HPC work plan in March. There is a History Colorado staff training plan for you in April. I just wanted to let you know in advance if there's any topics you'd like to learn about to start brainstorming, and we can chat more about it in March. And then the next regular meeting is March 16th at 6:30.
And then we have updates from commission members. Does anybody else have any updates?
I was just going to say one thing, because we didn't get a chance to when the applicant was still here, but thank you for a wonderful packet. Plenty of volume there, but really nice job of working through all the issues and making it possible for us to, or at least for me, to act on the item and feel like I was really informed. So really appreciate that.
I have just a couple of quick updates, but it would be nice maybe if I can kick the conversation about the conference to next time. And then we can talk a little more in depth. But I just went to the Saving Places Conference a couple weeks ago. Really informative and interesting. The primary focus this year was on workforce development. And so making sure that there are enough skilled tradespeople to maintain older buildings, because adaptive reuse is starting to outpace new construction across the construction industry. So there's big money in it, which will hopefully attract people who want to learn how to maintain those buildings. But there's a real shortage right now, and most of the workforce is getting ready to retire. So that was top of mind throughout the conference.
Was that in Denver,
Mhm.
is outpacing, or statewide, or?
Everywhere, I think industry-wide. Yeah,
Interesting.
it's fascinating, but, so,
Is that it?
yeah, that's all I have for today. We've tackled quite a bit, so. Does anybody want to make a motion to adjourn?
I will make a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting.
Second.
You have to say all in favor.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
It's real money. And I want to thank the bipartisan legislators who worked to make these savings possible.